Our first speaker, those of you who have come every time we've had the conference know Justine very, very well. She has been doing this since the very first conference. Justine Alessi, I think, is a master in what she does. She's a master tarot reader, and she invented her own technique of bringing the readings, the definitions for the tarot cards into the modern age, because most of the definitions go back, hundreds and hundreds of years when the tarot cards, the definitions were first defined. So she brought them into the modern age and to tell what they apply to our time. So this is her book, Rebirth of the Oracle. And I guess I should say, after the conference is over on Monday, she's going to have a class here where she's going to teach people how to do her method. This is with the standard weight deck, and we have the decks here and the books. Anybody who wants to take the class on Monday. Hers is different, and you said it's very easy to use, and it's up back and into the modern part. So anybody who wants to sign up for that class, let Julia know, or the desk back. The registration desk? Okay. You got enough on your plate, okay. She's got to take care of the world. Okay. So anybody who's interested in Justine's class, talk to them at the registration desk. And this will be on Monday after the conference officially ends here. But Justine, she's a doll, and you'll be really surprised at what she's going to give you. Come on, sweetheart. Okay. Feedback.
Oh, you know what?
That's what you get for having a microphone on your chest.
Wonder if I step away from the podium.
We'll see if it's going to affect it.
Is it? Can you hear me? Yeah. I guess it's okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think so. It's a pleasure to be here yet again. This is the 6th time I've been here. I love it more every time. I'm very happy to see you all. I recognize many of your faces. I won't remember your names. Please don't be offended, because I do meet so many people, but I'll read your name tag and pretend that I know who you are. Tarot is important to me. There's a woman here named Anita who wrote a new book called Twitter, and in her book she describes the moments in your life where you kind of transcend the world that we're in right now and go to a different spot. It might be just for a moment, it might be for a minute, but it feels like you visited a different world. And she's got some stories in her book. I haven't read it yet, but I intend to. She's got some stories in her book about people who have had these moments. Well, I never knew anybody else had moments like that, but I do. What happened to me was, probably about 25 years ago, I was a librarian. And there was a young man who used to come into my library, and he didn't have shoes. I mean, he had shoes, but they were too tight. And he'd take off his shoes, and I'd see under the table his toes were curled up. So one day I took him to get a pair of shoes. I felt bad, and I took him to get a pair of shoes. Well, he remembered that. And several years later, he came back into the library, and he threw a deck of tarot cards on my desk, and he said, "You can do these." Well, I've never seen tarot cards in my life. I didn't even know what they were. And I opened them up, and I understood them, and I was transcended into it. It only lasted a moment, but I wasn't myself. I was in a white space, and I was a woman. I knew my name. My name was Rama. I was looking down, and you know when you're sitting, you can look down and see your lap? That's all I could see. I couldn't see what I looked like or anything like that. I could just see my lap. And I had on a blue dress, and it was kind of a linen-y material. And I could see the dress, and in front of me was a table, and on the table were these symbols, like pictures. And then I flashed back out of there, and it stuck in my mind ever since, this picture of Rama. About 5 years later, I was doing readings, and when I do readings, I always ask for a referral because my office is in my house. And I don't want anybody knocking on my door or, strangers coming in. So to get a reading, I'll say, who referred you to me? And they'll say, Mary Smith, and I'll say, okay, then I'll do a reading. So on the phone, I have everybody's name. Well, this woman called for a reading, and I asked her what her name was, and she said her name was Rhema. And I was like, wow. And I told her my story. Well, she said, I'll have something for you. Well, when she came, she had a paper that was printed from some book. I don't know where it was from, but it was about the word Rhema in the name, and it was a Israeli name, and it meant the spoken word of God. Now, I don't think that I'm the spoken word of God by any stretch of the imagination, but I do believe that tarot is oriented in the God in all of us. Many people are afraid of the tarot. There are 2 cards in the tarot that frighten people. One is death, the other one is the devil. I am not God. I do not know who's going to die, and neither does anybody else. And if you ever encounter a reader who says you're going to die, I suggest you get up and you walk out. For 2 reasons. One, they are assuming the power of God, and they're using that power to control you. And 2, they don't know anything about the tarot. What the death card really is an event, and it's an event that is so majorly transformational that all 4 of your life areas will change. The 4 life areas are your day-to-day activities, your finances, your personal relationships, and your power. Power encompassing mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. Most people's first death card is graduating from high school. At that point in their lives, you can see where the choices are to be made. They're either going to go on to college, they're going to get a job, they're going to join the military, they're going to get married, they're going to move to California with their friends. They make a big life choice. That's the first one. There's never a last death card, but I would say the one when it's most life-changing is retirement. And it kind of like the span of a person's work life is symbolized by the death card. But again, you can always get married again when you're 25, or you can get married when you're 75. So that's a death card, getting married, because you've changed your day-to-day activities, you've changed your finances, you've changed your personal relationship, and you've certainly changed your power. Marriage is a death card, as is divorce, having children, moving across the country, changing careers. If you won the Mega Millions lottery tonight, it would be a death card because it would change everything. That is all that it means. Do not let anyone tell you any different. I am an expert on the tarot. There is no other meaning to that card. The other card is the devil. Many fundamentalist Christians will say, oh, the tarot's evil, the devil's in it. Interestingly enough, the devil in the tarot is not Satan, or that's not the devil. The devil in the tarot are the demons we fight within ourselves, what we do to ourselves to prevent our own growth. For most people, the card represents anxiety and fear. Anxiety and fear holds more people back than all physical problems combined. Greed, anger, envy, guilt, doubt, grief, obsessive relationships, the need to abuse drugs and alcohol, these are all devil cards. They are certainly not evil cards. They are human cards. I don't know anybody who doesn't have a devil card at least once or twice in their life. Don't be afraid if you see it. It does not portend evil. What happened was during the Renaissance, the cards made their way into Europe from Egypt. The French and Italian painters loved to paint the tarot. Of course, the Renaissance was strictly Catholic Christian. All society is based on its religion. The painters looked at those symbols and called them death and the devil, and the irony in that was that there was no death and the devil in the Egyptian belief. It was a strictly Christian belief, but it kind of got lost in the translation. Part of my mission as a reader and as an author is to get rid of the stigma, to get rid of the negative energy on the tarot. There is no negative energy on the tarot. What a tarot reading will do is it will tell you the way things are going to go in your life if you leave them alone. Tarot is if-then. If you don't like what you see, then you can change it. There is nothing that's etched in stone, and the tarot is only meant to be a guide. For instance, if it tells you that you're heading in a bad direction at work, it will actually tell you if you have an enemy at work, if it's you. If say the reason you have a problem at work is because you're too independent, it'll tell you that. If I tell you when I'm doing your reading, you want to back off a little at work, they're thinking you're too independent and your job's in jeopardy, if you don't back off, you're going to lose your job. The cards are right. I mean, I find them to be 94% correct. But if you do listen and you back off, well, then you've saved your job. You control your life. The cards do not control your life. But they are very helpful in giving direction. They're very helpful in giving you some sort of, I guess I want to say, comfort zone. People tell me when they're done with the reading with me that they feel uplifted. That's how you're supposed to feel. You're not supposed to feel frightened. You're not supposed to feel anxious. You're not supposed to feel nervous. You're supposed to feel uplifted and with perhaps some answers to your questions. On a true tarot reading, you will ask questions. You could ask me if I'm going to do a reading for you, and I have a lot of readings booked I am thinking for this conference, but any reader who you go to, you ask questions. Don't let the reading, don't try to test the reader and say, well, tell me what it says. The reader doesn't know your life or what you're interested in. Ask questions. Tell me what you want to know. I'll answer it. I will tell you anything you want to know about yourself and those closest to you regarding love, health, work, money, career, travel, luck, I don't care. Anything you want to know, I am happy to tell you. Make the most of your tarot reading. When you go to a reader, a good reader will say, what do you want to know? And you can be broad if you want. You can say, well, I want to know about my work. Well, that's fine. I can tell you about your work. But maybe it's better to know, am I going to win the contract on this new project that I have at work? I can tell you that too. You set the tone for the reading. It's your reading. Don't let somebody else have power over you, especially a card reader or any reader for that matter. You have the power over yourself, and you give them your power when you're asking them to take over and just tell me whatever you want to tell me. That's when you start getting the people who are trying to control you and scare you. A lot of readers scare you. Another thing to be very cautious of are the readers who say to you, if you give me $50, I'll burn a candle for you and you'll meet the love of your life. They do that. They do it all the time. There was a woman near me, and I live in a small town in Ohio, who actually got somebody to buy her a car because she told him that he would meet his true love if he helped her buy a car. I've seen readers who have jewelry, who have trips, who con people into taking them traveling with them, doing all kinds of things because they can. They're no more right, they're no more experienced than you or I. But you know what? They're using their power negatively. You will not see those readers last. Those are the ones who have their sign out with the hand in the window, and then a few years later, you don't see it there anymore. You also have to be careful, I think, when you're a reader. As I said earlier, I always ask for a referral. You don't want to just let anybody in your house or in your office. You're talking, dealing with the public, and many people who are into metaphysics are not high-minded, like the group that I have here. You wouldn't be at this conference if you weren't high-minded. A lot of people expect you to do magic for them, and they think because you have a little bit of a gift that you can do magic. You don't want those kind of people in your life because they won't let you alone. I've had people who have followed me, who have called me like every day, trying to get me to like guide their life, and I won't do it. And eventually you learn to say, no, don't call me anymore. But it took me a while. But again, I've been in business for 25 years, so now it's easy. But in the beginning, it wasn't easy. I want to talk a little bit about the tarot. And I said ask questions. The top 3 questions in the tarot are, will I ever have love? Will I ever have money? Will I ever lose weight? Those are the numbers. Isn't that funny? That's the truth. And I've got cards for everything. The weight loss card's probably the most used health card that I have. And interestingly enough, and I learned a lot of this from Rhema. Rhema comes to me with information, and she tells me things to look for in the card that I had not thought of and that nobody else has ever written about. And one thing I noticed was if you look at the suit of swords in the tarot, there's a sword across every part of the human body, every part. You can tell a person's physical condition from looking at the cards. You can't tell if they're going to die, but I have said to people, please see a gynecologist because I see something wrong with the female area with the sword. I've had more than one person say their life has been saved, that they've had, one girl in particular, she said she had cervical cancer. She had no warning. She was only 42. And she said it saved her life because she got a little scared because I said it. I don't scare people. And when you deliver, it's all in the delivery. When you talk tarot, you don't scare people. You just say, listen, you have a little bit of negative energy here around your female organs. Maybe you should get it checked out. That's how you say it. You don't say, oh, you have cervical cancer. I don't know that you have cervical cancer. I know that your cards say there's something wrong with your female organs and that you should get it checked. But I don't know what it is. I'm not a doctor. Another thing, the heart, the lungs, the joints, the stomach, the mind, the eyes, all of these are covered with a tarot card. And I will be very truthful with you. Most people do not have sickness cards. I would say the majority of people are well. They might have a little bit of arthritis. That seems to be my most common card, which is the 5 of Swords. They might have some arthritis, and you know, who doesn't? By the time you hit 60, everybody does. But for the most part, people are healthy. So that doesn't come into play very often. But when it does, it's all in the delivery. The 4 areas of life that are defined by the tarot are love, money, power, and work. Love questions are pretty common. And a lot of times you can get very frustrated as a reader. Sometimes you will have the same person over and over again coming to you and asking about her relationship that's a bad relationship. And I see them. I see abusive relationships. I see relationships with alcoholics. I see relationships with criminals. That doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means that getting in a relationship with somebody who has a lot of negative energy is very difficult for the person involved. And especially in abuse, I'm very much against it. And when I see people, and you can tell by the reading, you can absolutely tell if a person is being abused. And you can say, I would suggest that you seek a different relationship. The one you're in is very harmful to you. You don't say, get away from him, he's going to beat you up. unless, and I have seen violence. And if I see violence, I tell the person, I tell them, I say, listen, I see violence in this reading. I think it would be very wise if you be very careful in your current relationship. And the Tower is the violence card. And if you see the Tower on somebody's relationship, that's your job as a reader. You tell them to be cautious, to be careful, to get away. You don't say your boyfriend's a jerk. You just say, let me suggest that you get away from this relationship. It's going to bring you harm. They'll listen to you. Just like they listen to the scary reader, they will listen to you when you say things like that. A lot of times people, you'll give them the courage to move away from it. Many times as a reader, you will have people who come to you and you'll be the first line of defense. You'll be the first person they open up to. I remember one lady looked at me one time and broke down and cried and told me about incest that she had suffered at the hands of her father. And she said, I've never told this to anyone. Well, she told me, but I'm a card reader. I am not equipped to deal with incest. What I do is I keep a list of names of psychologists and other professionals near my desk. Business cards, I hand them out. I say, please go and see this woman. This woman specializes in that. You need to talk to somebody. They listen. I send a lot of people to therapy. When you're a reader, you do not presume you are a therapist, because you're not. You're a reader. Can you know things? Absolutely. Can you help people? Absolutely. And if it's a small problem, like maybe they spend too much money, you can help them with that. But if somebody's suffering the pangs of incest 35 years later, you're not there for that. That's not who you are. You send them on to therapy. People are very grateful for that, because a lot of time, and one of my standard sayings is, I don't send people to therapy who are mentally ill, because I send people who are not. And I want you to go to a therapist and have that therapist tell you that there's nothing wrong with you. It's what's happened to you. Well, they'll accept that, and it works. They'll go. And I've sent literally hundreds of people into therapy over the years. When it comes to money, that's a real big question in the tarot. Everybody wants money. Well, most people are not going to get a lot of money. That's not what I see. Most people will get by. They will be able to make their bills and maybe have a little bit left over. A certain faction of people can't even do that. You will see bankruptcies in your reading, especially in the economy that we have today. And every once in a while, you'll see somebody who has stellar money cards. I, in particular, had this one guy who used to come. He was young, in his 30s. And I used to tell him, you're going to be a millionaire by the time you're 35. And he'd be, how? I said, I don't know, but it's not luck. It's not the lottery, but you will be a millionaire by the time you're 35. I said, maybe you're going to invent something. I don't know how he's going to be a millionaire, but he kept having the cards. Well, didn't he get called to that show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And guess what? He answered the $1 million question, and he was a millionaire. So it happens. I've told people, I've had sports stars, and I'm not very sports oriented, and I don't know if anybody in here is or not, but there was a pretty famous Cleveland Indians baseball player. Well, I didn't know who he was because I never heard of him. I don't know those names. And he kept saying his name, his first name. And finally, I thought, apparently this guy thinks I should know him, but I don't know who he is. So I went in, I made up an excuse, like I had to go to the restroom or something, and I went, and my husband was in the other room, and I said, did you ever hear of so-and-so? And he said, are you kidding? And I go, yeah. I said, he's in my office. I said, but I never heard of him. He goes, are you kidding? He's one of the top pitchers for the Cleveland Indians. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I knew. So sometime you do and sometime you don't, but you get all walks of life. You get all kinds of people, from people who are very desperate for some help to people who are just looking for fun, people who are entertaining themselves with tarot. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fun. It is fun. And to get a reading is something that gives you hope. That's what you're selling when you're selling a tarot reading. You're selling hope. Going back to money, there's several ways of making money. The one I see the most often, and I find this rather interesting, there's a card, it's called the Two of Wands, and it's a card about your own business. It says you turn your back on being nailed to the wall by the demands of other people, freely picking the world up in your own hands. That's the Two of Wands. When I see that card, I tell people, maybe, do you have the thought of a business for yourself? And most of them will say, oh, I've thought that my whole life. Well, most people don't have the wherewithal, the money, the ability to drop everything they're doing and start their own business. However, you're there to give them some hope. If it shows that their business would be successful, then tell them. And maybe you'll just give them the impetus to go on and start that business and be successful. I've done it hundreds of times. Other times it doesn't show that. They'll say to me, I want to start my own business. What do you think? That's their question. And I'll say, no, you're going to have to think of something else. That doesn't look like a good idea. So you have to be honest when you're a reader. You can't say, oh, pump everybody up and be everybody's cheerleader. That's not what it's about. What it's about is abject honesty. You just tell the truth. They can always change it. If they ask me, should I go into business putting on roofs, and I look at the cards and the card's upside down, I'll say, no, it's not a good business. Think of something else. And they will. And they can. So the money card, you've got to guide people. Most people, as I said, aren't going to win the lottery. However, I have had 4 people, and I've done thousands and thousands of readings. I've had 4 people with major luck wins. To have a major luck win, you have to have the Wheel of Fortune and the Ace of Pentacles on the same house in the tarot. And the house is part of the spread. If you come to my class, you'll understand it. And I've seen it 4 times, and I've told them, you're going to win a lot of money. And I've had 4 people win $100,000 or more. For the most part, I'll see a Wheel of Fortune, and that might say, if you want to gamble, gamble in Capricorn between December 20th and January 20th. That's your luckiest time of the year. That's when you win some money. So that's pretty much how the money card goes. When it comes to power, power is a lot of things. Power is the Ace of Swords, which is the power sword, is perhaps the singular most important card in the tarot. The Ace of Swords depicts a hand holding a sword upright. And it's almost like, I have my power. Many people have the card upside down. What that means is that they've handed their power off to somebody else. Excuse me. It could be a husband, it could be a friend, it could be a child, it could be a boss. But these people have taken their power and handed it off to another person. That's in card readings all the time. And I tell them, you've given your power away. Take back your power. And they look at me, and how do I do that? And I say, this is your power, take it back. You don't allow people to run your life like that. That's not what we do. What you do when you're a human being in complete charge of your life is you are in charge of your life. You don't let other people take control of your life. The power sword has to do mostly with work and relationships. A lot of people at work, they give it away. They're so afraid of maybe their boss. They're so afraid of what their boss can do or the power that their boss has over them that they don't perform for themselves. They perform to please somebody else. And when you're performing to please somebody else, you're never going to be successful. It is never going to happen. When you start to perform to be successful for yourself, then you have back your power. Along with your power comes your ability to get a raise, which is what most people want with the power. They want to move up the ladder. It ups your ability to get the power move, to get the promotion. And if your power is given perhaps to a spouse, I see a lot of women in particular who have a husband who runs their life. I've been married 42 years. He doesn't run my life. I run his. But when you see somebody who allows someone else to dictate everything about their life, from what they're wearing to what they're saying to where they're going, that's power. That's power that's given in the wrong direction. I tell them, take back your power. Sometimes I wonder how many husbands or wives don't like me, but I don't care. One thing when you're a reader, people are a little bit afraid you can put a curse on them, so they don't bother you too much. And that's true. On the work side of the tarot, work isn't just going to work. Work is your day-to-day activity. Work is getting your kids off to school. Work is going to work. Work is doing your laundry. Work is painting your kitchen. Work is, I'm trying to think of another example. Your hobbies. Say you like to go skiing or your sports. Those are all work cards. What you do with your work is it's documented in the tarot. You know how many people do nothing for pleasure? It amazes me. People are so bogged down with the day-to-day activity that they have no time for pleasure. People who haven't read a book in 5 years, people who haven't gone to a movie, people who haven't gone out to dinner, people who run a life of complete drudgery. There are a lot of people like that, which shocks me, because what shocks me about it is that they came to get their cards read. And to me, that's a cry for help. They're looking for something to give them a different direction, or perhaps even something to entertain them, because you can be entertaining with a tarot reading. But a lot of people don't have a clue that they deserve a good life. And you do deserve a good life. And if you've got a good tarot reader in front of you, he or she is going to direct you to the good life. They're going to uplift you. They're going to say, you can do that. If you can. If I saw somebody who was sitting across from me who had braces on their legs, I'm not going to tell them that they can participate in sports. But you can tell them that they could write. You could tell, it'll be in the cards. Everybody's got a talent, and all the talents are in the cards. You could tell them that they could teach. You could tell them that they could experiment, invent something. Everybody has something. And just because you have a physical limitation does not mean you cannot contribute. That is not what that means. And a lot of people need a reader to tell them that. My advocacy here is for good readers. I would love to see more readers. They're not enough. Where I live, there's me, and I live in a small town in Ohio. There's maybe 4 readers. 2 of them scare people, 2 of us don't. The 2 of us who don't are busy. The ones who do are scrabbling for clients. Other than the ones that they hook with, if you give me $50, I'll change your life. Never give a reader money other than the cost of a tarot reading. Speaking of, reasonable. I should never see anybody charging more than $100 for a tarot reading, and even that's high. I'd say the norm is about 50. And readers who want you to spend, and readers who want you to come more than once or twice a week, or more than once or twice a year, don't go to them. People who will have you come in there giving them $50 3 times a week to scare you, to control you, that happens all the time. I would say most people could use a reading twice a year. I think that's sufficient. Unless they're going through something. Sometimes somebody's going through something like a divorce and they are pretty in a lot of a turmoil, then I'll read them once a month, but only until they're past their crisis point. 3 months should be about the minimum that you'll put between a reading, because you've got to give the universe time to spin. There are 3 sets of cards in the tarot: the court cards, the major arcana, and the minor arcana. The major arcana is the journey of your soul, which is your reincarnated soul in the lifetime that you have chosen for this lifetime. The minor arcana is the journey of your physical self, the body you have chosen, the actions you have chosen to do in this lifetime. In the major, there's the lessons learned. In the minor, there's the lessons to be learned. When I read cards for people, the most important thing we look at is the major arcana, because you can tell where a person is along the tree of life. Some people are newborn. Some people have never been in this lifetime before, or if they have, it's been once or twice. And then other times you'll get somebody like Dolores, who's been here so many times that the other side is speaking to her. That's so old. That's so evolved. That doesn't happen to all of us. That happens to the highly evolved. To most people, I'm not saying you can't get messages from another dimension. I'm not saying that at all, because we all do from time to time. But to the point where Dolores gets it, she would actually be called a high priestess in the tarot, because a high priestess is the most evolved of the sacred feminine. When they wrote the Da Vinci Code, they talked about how they hid the heresy of Jesus being married to Magdalene in the tarot. And that card was the high priestess. And she was the sacred feminine, the goddess. People who are highly evolved are represented in the tarot by the card of the goddess, the high priestess. Most people are represented by a court card. There are 16 of them: 4 kings, 4 queens, 4 knights, and 4 pages. The kings are men in their maturity. The queens are all women from about 16 up. The knights are young men who have not achieved maturity, and the pages are children. I don't do a lot with the pages. I see them in readings, but I don't believe that you mess too much. You don't mess with kids. And I'll tell people things about their kids, but you don't read kids. That's not what tarot is for. Tarot is very serious business. It's not a carnival game. And you don't, let little kids fool with your cards. That's not what you do. Maybe 16 or so, they might be ready. And even at that, it's a different kind of reading than I would give to a 46-year-old. Because when you're dealing with children, you have to give them the upside. You never give them the downside. They'll take it too seriously and they'll be afraid. But anyway, the kings, there's a few kings in here I see. And most of them look like King of Wands to me. There's a few King of Cups. The King of Wands is the King of Clubs in a regular deck of cards. He is an earthbound king. He's the good guy, the dad, the one who is looking for stability and I guess I want to say peace. A man who will do what he has to do to seek peace. A lot of their wives will drag them to things like this. And they'll be like, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that. But when they get here, they're not so cynical anymore. The King of Wands is the man who people believe will take care of them. And most of the men who are here have a lot of wand energy. The kind of men who will take care of the people they love, whose family is of the utmost importance. I see a few Queens of Wands in the front row. The Queen of Wands is the Queen of Clubs in a regular deck of cards. She too is an earthbound queen. The Queen of Wands are among my favorites. They are healers, caretakers, nurturers, and teachers. This right here, this first woman, I don't know your name. You, honey. Yeah. Sherry? Yeah, you have a wand energy. And that's an earth energy. You feel like the kind of a person who will go out of your way to help your friends, who is just one of those people that people count on and rely on, sometime to the place where people can tramp on you. You have to watch that one. But that's part of being a Queen of Wands. I'm able to tell energies. If I didn't by now, something would be wrong with me. I've done so many readings. But you can tell what a person is by the way they feel. This lady over here, I don't know your name, Shelby, she's a Queen of Pentacles. The Queen of Pentacles is the Queen of Diamonds in a regular deck of cards. She's the one who's the perfectionist, the one who should run the world because she's doing it right. Everyone should have a Queen of Pentacles in their life because she's the one who will set things up and take care of things for you. The other queens, and most of the women in the front row are Queen of Wands. You're a Queen of Pentacles with the blonde hair. You're organized and orderly. You're a Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups is the Queen of Hearts in a regular deck of cards. She is my love queen, not because you get so much, but rather because you give so much. The Queen of Cups is non-judgmental of other people, has an unlikely assortment of friends, people who perhaps wouldn't be friends with each other, but they're your friend because you believe there's good in everybody. Sometimes that can get you in trouble, but for the most part, it's okay, you know. And you are the intuitive one. The Queen of Cups is the one who can read people. She's intuitive enough to read people. She can read the tarot. I hope you have a deck because you could definitely read them. Good for you. Yeah. Usually when I say somebody's a Queen of Cups, they'll say I have a deck because you're naturally drawn to it. If you want, I know this is a huge crowd and I only have a couple more minutes to talk, but if I see you walking through, I'll tell you what you are if you want. And my book, the reason I think that my book, what makes it so different is I have compiled complete archetypical personality profiles of all the court cards. What I did was over the years, as I was doing readings, I began to notice that people fell into archetypical patterns. And I thought, didn't anybody else ever notice this? And so I started to compile like notes. And it would be like the Queen of Wands, and the King of Wands. A lot of them suffered from joint pain. Well, it makes sense. These are the people who are out there, who get up and go and do and take care of everybody. Well, of course they wear out their joints. It's all common sense. The Queen of Cups, given to depression. Well, you start listening to everybody's problems all the time, you'll get depressed. There's always a reason, but nobody ever did it before. So there's 10 or 12 pages on all the different court cards. So if you get a hold of my book, which I know is for sale, I can tell you what you are, and if you want to, you can go look it up. I don't mind. It only takes me a second to tell you what you are. I only have 5 more minutes, so I thought let me wrap up by saying that it is certainly a pleasure to be here. I look forward to doing a lot of readings for you. And anything you want to ask me about the tarot, please ask me. I'm open for questions. If anybody has any, you can come on up here. Yeah, I'll be glad to take questions.
Justine, I love the story about the millionaire.
I know you do. That's why I've incorporated it. I put it in there for you, Dolores.
I didn't hear you say that.
Yeah, I said it. Yeah, I did. Mm. Yeah, I know. I put that in for you. I say it in every lecture I do. Yes.
Just a minute, I'm trying to think how to organize it. Can you hear me now? I've been studying astrology for more than 40 years, and I've never done it professionally, and I do people's charts. And I've found a conflict between what's in the astrology chart, because I think astrology is very accurate, and what I see in the astrology chart. And sometimes I think I see what I want to see, especially when doing friends and family.
Right.
And I'm wondering if the tarot card is any easier to separate the two. And sometimes I think I need to put my intuitiveness into it and what I know, but other times I think I put too much of it in it and see what I want to see.
I've gotten to the point where very close family members, I won't read them because that's what I do. You don't want to see the bad. So what you do is you kind of gloss over it or you
Exactly.
alter it. Yeah, that's what I do too. So I got to the point where I don't read close family members anymore. I actually have a girlfriend who's a reader, and I ask her to do it, and we'll swap family members. But you know, there's a link between tarot and astrology.
Yeah,
and,
that's why I was getting into it. I
and
felt
you
like
know,
it'd be comfortable for me.
Yeah, the link is strong. I didn't realize it until I've been looking into it the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
There's like certain of the court cards correspond with the zodiac. Like a lot of the wand people are fire signs, and the astrology defines that, but I didn't really realize it until I noticed how people respond. There's a lot to be said for linking tarot to astrology, but I do agree with you. It's hard to read for people who are close to you. I would probably send them to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, if your son's going to marry somebody you don't think he should marry, when you do the reading, you kind of tend to say.
I'd tell him.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Mine is kind of along that same line. Can you do your own reading?
You can, but again, it's difficult to be objective. I guess the older I am, the easier it is for me to be objective. When I was younger, I couldn't because my life at that time encompassed my kids and, you know, and I didn't want anything to ever be wrong. So I kind of kept away from it, but now that I'm older, I can flip them out. Sometimes if I have a question, I'll just kind of flip down 3 cards and see what my answer is, but I'm careful what I ask. I mean, it's fearful.
Even yourself?
Even myself,
Oh,
yes.
interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. You're a Queen of Wands, too. You are? Oh, yeah. So are you.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I had a question about the power cards.
Okay.
I'm most interested in when someone's struggling perhaps with taking back their power, because it does, I find, change a lot of your relationships when you start to claim your power.
Right.
So I was just curious to hear a little bit more about how you might help guide someone through that process.
Well, when I say take back your power, I don't pretend that it's easy. And I tell them straightforwardly that you may lose this person in your life. Or if you don't want to lose this person in your life, you're going to have to be very straightforward and tell him or her how much you're willing to give. If they don't like it, you have to walk away. And I say walk away. There's this card, it's the 5 of Swords. And a lot of times when it's combined with the Tower and the Ace of Swords reversed, I'll say it's called put down your sword and walk away. And that's what I tell them, put down your sword and walk away, because you can't keep fighting that person. You've got to move on. You can't change anybody. We all know this by now. But a lot of young people don't know it, and that's who I mostly come across that struggle card with. But you have to be just honest and just tell them it's going to be hard, and be there for them. A lot of times those will be the ones who will call you like once a month or something, and that's okay to help them because they are in a struggle.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to ask about different tarot decks. You mentioned the white deck, and I'm wondering, is that like your favorite deck or the main deck that you use, and how would you compare different decks where different tarot decks may have like radically different artwork which may affect the energies of the cards?
Well, there are hundreds of decks. The Universal Weight deck, it's W-A-I-T-E, is also called the Rider Weight deck, R-I-D-E-R. Both of them have the same pictures. The Universal Weight deck is more colored than the Rider Weight, but they're the same pictures. That deck speaks to me, and that is the deck used by probably 80% of the readers. I have actually bought the rights to that deck to use to illustrate my book. That one shows pictures that you can pick up the card and say, see this? This means, and you can show them by looking at the picture. So that's my favorite. Many decks spin off from the Rider deck, and the pictures they're different artists, but they're similar. The other decks, some of them are very esoteric. They'll be like, for the Three of Swords, for instance, in the Universal Weight deck, is a heart with 3 swords piercing it. It's a heartache card. Well, on some of the decks, the Marseille deck in particular, all there are 3 swords. There's no picture. So for a novice reader, it doesn't mean anything. It means 3 swords. And what you would have to do is, it doesn't speak to the subconscious, where the Rider deck speaks to the subconscious. So that's why I recommend that deck, the Universal Weight. I think it's the best deck there is, and most readers would agree with me. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like for you to address a conflict that I personally have about tarot, and it's a conflict between going inside and creating your own reality and making your reality happen and manifesting, as opposed to the way I see it, going out of yourself, going to a reader, going to cards, and asking someone else to tell you about your reality. Every time I've ever had a reading, except once, the cards read exactly like I wanted them to.
Well, that's because your intuition's guiding them.
One time I had a reader say, okay, now reshuffle the cards, and this time don't program the deck.
Well, programming the deck is what it's all about.
Well, that's what I thought, but it seems to me like it's a conflict between going within and going without. And if you could address that kind of broad philosophical conflict that I have.
Well, you know, interestingly, the Egyptians believed that the cards, of course, are symbols. And when you're handling, they believed that the solar plexus was the seat of the subconscious. And when you're handling the deck, there's kind of like an energy force. And you're getting transference from here, look at the shape, the solar plexus through which they believed was the heart in the middle, down the arms into the hands. And your hands are shuffling, and what you're getting is information from your solar plexus, from your psyche, and from your heart. And that's why readers who tell you, let me read you over the phone, how can they? The only way I can read people over the phone is I have them go buy a deck of cards and mail them to me after they shuffle them, then I'll call them, and I'll send the deck back. Your energy has to be on that deck. And of course you're programming it because that's your energy. And we do get what we want. That's what we're programmed to do. What's in our mind is what happens. You can change what's in your mind, which is why I tell people sometimes if what looks not good on the deck, you can change it. That's why you get your cards read. So if you have a reader who's telling you what you already know, you've got a good reader. So, yeah, you've got a good reader. That's exactly right. You're exactly right. That's a very good saying, and that applies. You're a Queen of Cups. Queen of Cups. You could read the cards. You're welcome. Anybody else? Well, my time is up. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. And hopefully I'll read for you. Thank you.